The Dominion of Varesh had never lost a war. In 300 years of expansion across the outer spiral, they had broken 17 civilizations, absorbed 42 star systems, and reduced 11 species to servitude. Their warships were the finest ever constructed by any known intelligence. Kilometer-long behemoths wrapped in ablative chromite armor, armed with planet-cracking lance batteries, crewed by soldiers who had been conditioned from birth to know only one outcome: victory. So when the small, unremarkable species on the edge of the Veil of Korrath refused to surrender, the Dominion did not negotiate. They sent 10,000 ships. Admiral Serath Vor stood on the command bridge of the Eternal Dominion, the flagship of the largest war fleet ever assembled in the history of the Varesh people. Around him, through the panoramic viewport, the stars were nearly hidden by the silhouettes of his own armada. Row upon row, formation upon formation, destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers, arranged in geometric perfection across 300,000 kilometers of void. It was beautiful. It was absolute. Admiral, his tactical officer, a young male named Drev, turned from his console with bright, eager eyes. All 10,000 vessels report combat-ready status. The humans have not responded to our final ultimatum. Humans. That was what they called themselves. Serath had reviewed the intelligence files on these creatures with mild curiosity before departure. Bipedal, warm-blooded, short-lived, barely a century per individual. They had achieved spaceflight only 400 years ago. Their ships were smaller than Varesh ships. Their weapons were less precise. Their numbers, scattered across perhaps 30 inhabited worlds, were negligible compared to the might of the Dominion. And yet, they had refused. 3 times the Dominion had sent diplomatic envoys. 3 times the humans had responded with the same quiet, infuriating answer: "We do not surrender. We do not yield. Come if you must, but understand what you are beginning." Serath had found it almost amusing. A child threatening a storm. "Begin the advance," he said. The fleet crossed into the Veil of Korrath at 0600 standard. The Veil was a region of space unusual for its density of interstellar dust and gravitational microeddies. Navigation was difficult, sensor range was reduced, and communication across long distances became unreliable. It was not ideal for a military advance, but the human worlds lay beyond it. There was no other route. Serath was not concerned. He had 10,000 ships. The first hour of transit was uneventful. Then Drev looked up from his console, and something in his expression made Serath's blood run cold. "Admiral, we're detecting anomalous readings in sectors 7 through 12. Define anomalous." "The gravitational signature. It's changing. It's not consistent with natural eddies. Something is reshaping it." Drev's fingers moved rapidly across his console. "Sir, I'm also picking up faint energy signatures. Extremely low frequency, distributed across a wide area. Almost like a grid." Serath stood. Battle stations. The alert klaxons had barely begun to sound when the first ship disappeared. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Disappeared. The destroyer Vash Core, running on the outer edge of Formation 9, simply ceased to appear on sensors. No explosion. No distress signal. No debris. One moment it was there, 400 crew, 12 lance turrets, a century of Dominion engineering. And then it was not. Then another ship vanished. Then 3 more. "What is happening?" Serath's voice remained controlled, but his hands gripped the command rail hard enough to whiten his knuckles. "I don't know." Drev's voice cracked with something Serath had never heard from a Varesh officer: fear. "Sensors are. The readings don't make sense. It's as if space itself is." The ship shuddered. Not from weapons fire. Not from collision. It was a deep, subsonic vibration that moved through the hull like a living thing, like the groan of something enormous waking up. Serath heard his crew cry out across the bridge. Through the viewport, the stars themselves seemed to shift, subtly wrong, arranged in a configuration that should not have been possible. Then the voice came. It did not come through the communication system. It did not come from any speaker. It came from everywhere at once, from the metal of the hull, from the air itself, resonating in Serath's chest like a second heartbeat. "You were warned." The language was Varesh. Perfect, unaccented, precise. Serath's throat tightened. Who are you? What is this? A pause. When the voice returned, it carried something Serath could not immediately identify. It took him a moment to name it. Exhaustion. Old, deep, terribly patient exhaustion. We are the humans you came to conquer. In this, Admiral Serath Vor of the 7th bloodline of Varesh Prime. This is what we have spent 400 years building. Not ships, not weapons, not armies. Another pause. Infrastructure. The humans had understood something very early in their spacefaring history that most species never truly grasped. They were not fast. They were not strong. Individually, they were fragile. Their ships were slower than Varesh ships, their armor thinner, their weapons, in a direct engagement, outmatched. So they had never intended to fight directly. The Veil of Korrath had taken them 200 years to instrument. Every gravitational eddy, every dust cloud, every magnetic anomaly, mapped, understood, and then modified. Humanity had seeded the Veil with millions of tiny devices over the course of generations. Gravity modulators, phase emitters, spatial folding nodes. Individually, each device was insignificant. Together, they formed something unprecedented in the history of known space. A trap 400 years in the making. The humans called it the Shepherd's Net. When the Dominion fleet entered the Veil, the net activated. Gravity wells appeared and vanished, redirecting ships. Phase emitters created false sensor readings. Spatial folding nodes, the crowning achievement of human physics, developed in secret over a century, began to do something that should have been theoretically impossible. They folded space around individual ships, not destroying them, relocating them. Ship by ship, the 10,000 vessels of the Varesh war fleet were being silently, precisely, irreversibly redirected, folded out of the Veil, deposited, intact, crew alive, in a region of empty space 40,000 light-years from the Dominion's nearest territory. Not killed, removed. Serath stood on his bridge, watching his fleet disappear from the tactical display ship by ship, and he began to understand the depth of what he had walked into. You're not destroying them, he said aloud, not quite believing his own words. You're moving them. Yes. What? His voice was barely a whisper. You have us. You could. Kill you. The exhaustion in the voice deepened. Admiral, we know what killing 10,000 ships does. It starts a cycle. Your Dominion would send more. Harder. Angrier. We would fight. You would fight. Generations would burn. We have studied your history. We have studied our own. A long silence. Then, we chose differently. Serath looked at his tactical display. 9,843 ships already gone. The number ticked downward every few seconds. His flagship was still present. Deliberately, he now realized. They had left him until last. You're sending them home, he said. 40,000 light years away. It will take them years to return. Long enough for cooler minds to prevail, we hope. Long enough for your Dominion to understand that conquest has cost your accounting departments failed to calculate. And what about me? The pause this time was long. You are the message, Admiral. Every civilization needs someone to carry the message home. We chose you because your file indicated you were capable of understanding nuance. Were we wrong? Serath thought about his career. 300 years of Dominion expansion. The civilizations he had broken. The species now in chains who had done nothing but exist in the path of Varesh ambition. He thought about the child threatening a storm. He had been the storm. No, he said quietly. You were not wrong. The Eternal Dominion arrived back at Varesh Prime alone, 17 months later. The journey had given Serath a great deal of time to think. He delivered his report in person, before the full council of the Dominion, 12 high governors, the supreme commander, 3,000 years of consolidated power arranged in tiered seats above him like judges at a tribunal. He told them everything. He told them about the Shepherd's Net, about the spatial folding nodes, about the 40,000 light years, about the voice that spoke Varesh without accent. He told them about a species that had spent 4 centuries building a trap instead of a weapon, had allowed themselves to appear weak and small and conquerable, had let the Dominion assemble the largest fleet in history and sail it straight into a mechanism that returned every single ship home without a single Varesh fatality. He told them what the humans had said. When he finished, the chamber was silent for a very long time. Then Supreme Commander Uther Vel, the most powerful being in the Dominion, a male who had directed the subjugation of 9 civilizations, looked down at Serath from his elevated seat. "They had us," Uther said. It was not quite a question. "Yes, Supreme Commander. All 10,000 ships. Every crew member. Every weapon. Every piece of technology we possess. They had all of it in their hands. Yes. And they sent them home. Yes." Uther was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried something Serath had never heard from him in 40 years of service. "What do they want?" Serath reached into his uniform and withdrew a single data chip, pressed into his hand by a human drone that had materialized on his bridge just before the Eternal Dominion was folded away. He held it up. "They sent this. They said it contains a proposed treaty. Non-aggression. Trade access. Technology exchange. They're willing to share the spatial folding research." He paused. "They also said something else, Supreme Commander. They said, 'Tell your leaders we understand ambition. We understand the drive to expand and control. We were like that once. What changed us was the moment we realized the universe is large enough for everyone, and the only civilizations that truly fall are the ones that refuse to believe it.'" The chamber was silent. Serath set the data chip on the podium before him. "They're not afraid of us," he said. "They never were. They were patient. They built a better answer than war, and then they waited for us to come to them." He looked up at the council, 12 faces calculating, weighing, shifting. "I have fought across 30 star systems. I have never encountered anything like this. They did not defeat us. They educated us. And I think," he said quietly, "that we should be wise enough to learn the lesson." The Dominion did not expand again for 60 years. Negotiations took 3 of them. The treaty was signed on a human station at the edge of the Veil of Korrath, in a ceremony attended by Serath Vor and a human diplomat named Elena Vasquez, who shook his hand and smiled the smile of someone who had never doubted the outcome. "You really built all of that," Serath said to her quietly, looking out the station viewport at the Veil beyond. 400 years. "My great-great-grandmother laid the first nodes," Elena said. "She never thought she'd live to see the day they were needed. None of them thought they would." She paused. "But they built anyway. They built for us, for people they'd never meet, who would face a threat they could only imagine." Serath was quiet, thinking of the generations of Varesh who had also worked across centuries, but for conquest, for dominion, for the reduction of other peoples to subjects and servants. "We built the wrong things," he said. Elena Vasquez looked at him with steady, ancient eyes. "Then build better ones," she said simply. "You have time." In the centuries that followed, the Dominion of Varesh became something its founders would not have recognized and could not have imagined. They called the transformation many things: reformation, evolution, enlightenment. Historians would eventually settle on a simpler term. They called it the lesson of Korrath, and they traced it back, always, to the moment 10,000 warships entered the Veil and came home to find that the most powerful weapon in the known universe was 400 years of patient, stubborn, impossible human hope. Humanity never built a single warship. They never needed one.